Have you ever worked for a company that made you feel more like a rented mule than a member of the team? You didn't feel like they really valued your position or your feedback, let alone did they give you a sense of purpose? Or maybe you've been on the other end of the spectrum. Maybe you've been the employer who had an employee or employees that made little effort to go the extra mile with a sense of pride to operate like owners. Both scenarios can be really frustrating. One of the biggest challenges is getting all hands on deck to operate with synergy and momentum from the corner office to the customer service counter. Today, we're going to discuss how we bleed the vision to the front lines. Let's do this. Welcome to the Small Town Big Church Leadership Podcast, a place for pastors, church leaders, and volunteers to grow themselves and the local church. We're pastors Brad and Misty Hilton, church planters in rural America.
We've said it before and we'll say it again. The rise and fall of any organization is leadership. Vision is what drives the organization towards its mission. If our mission as a church, which it is here, is to lead people into a real and a life-changing relationship with Jesus that is contagious, our vision is what it will look like. It will also encompass how we operate, how we make decisions, how we treat others. Vision can be confusing sometimes, though, because of the terms has been used like interchangeably in the church world over the years. So in this context, we're not just talking about our strategy, which for us is to be the perfect church for imperfect people, but today we're talking about the big picture of why we do what we do. Why do we operate the way that we do as a church as a whole, but also in our week-to-week operations. So we have to understand and embrace that healthy, growing churches and organizations, they bleed the vision to the front lines.
Yeah. In order to understand this concept, I want you to imagine a concentric circle, or if you're like me, you better understand it this way, it's a target.
Right.
And the very center, you have God. And then you have the lead pastor or pastors. God is the one giving the vision to the pastors who are then sharing the vision with their staff members, then the team leads and the team captains, to the volunteers, to the church family, and then eventually to the entire community.
Yeah.
And so they not only understand what is being done and how it's being done, but more importantly, why.
Right.
And then communicate it to those they lead with the same passion as though it had been given to them directly by God.
Yeah.
Healthy leaders own the vision. Please understand this. Healthy leaders own and carry the vision for themselves. Today we're going to share with you 3 different ways you can bleed the vision. The first way is comprehend it. What do we mean by this? We're saying understand it. Ask clarifying questions. Get clarity so that you're not foggy about what you're doing. And here's some questions we ask ourselves in the process of clarification. What are we doing or not doing?
Right.
You know, how are we doing it? Why are we doing it this way? These are all super powerful questions that if you can get to the bottom of these questions, there's a much greater chance you're going to walk with a sense of ownership. And the ownership mentality is what we all have to have if we're going to truly bleed the vision.
And let me just kind of like set a couple examples out here for you so that you really understand it. So when we talk about bleeding vision, we're really talking about every part of the organization.
The big
everything,
picture.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's not just how do we do something or what do we do, but more importantly, why do we do it this way? Right? Because in any church or in any organization, how you do something and why you do something is different from organization to organization. For instance, if you go to Chick-fil-A, and you order anything from Chick-fil-A and they hand it over to you, they're going to make a statement at the end of that transaction, and it's going to be what?
Oh, my pleasure.
My pleasure,
you're speaking
right?
my language right now. Yeah.
Okay, you're hungry.
Yeah, this is Jesus chicken we're talking about.
But if you go to any other restaurant, and it may be amazing food, they don't end that transaction or that handoff of food with my pleasure, okay? So it's just how that organization does it. And I've even heard that Chick-fil-A is so serious about that culture that if you do not say my pleasure, it's grounds for dismissal. I'm sure there's a warning process in that, but it's like, it's so important. So in the church realm, when we talk about bleeding vision as staff members or as a team lead or a captain or a volunteer or even a church member who asks you, someone in the community might ask you, and you go to Mountain Movers Church and they say, why are you doing what you do out there? Like, I came out to your church one time and the lights were dimmed for worship. Why is that? Okay, bleeding vision would be able to explain why the lights are dim during worship to anyone who would ask. All right. So as pastors, we had to make a decision when we planted the church, what would our worship setting be like? And for us, we wanted to reach lost people who were so far from God. Okay, so imagine someone walks into our doors, they are so far from God. You walk into a worship setting and the worship starts, all the lights are on, people are lifting their hands, they're clapping, they're singing. As a brand new person who doesn't understand anything, to me, dimming the lights a little bit and making the focus more about the people leading worship, less about the people in the crowd, gives you the opportunity as an individual who's new to forget about people around you and just focus on the words of the song, learning to hear from God. It just, to me, it takes off the awkward edge that could be there for a new person walking in. From our office to the pastoral staff to our team leads, we all have to do a great job of clarifying and communicating. You need to ask questions of the person above you. Help me understand. Why is this so important that we do it this way? And don't walk away from that conversation, that meeting, that text thread
until you get it. So everybody needs to carry the vision. The pastors, the leaders of a company or an organization can't be everywhere at once, but the vision can if we all will carry the vision.
So then the second thing that you have to have in play in order to bleed vision is you as a leader, as a volunteer, you have to embrace it. When I say embrace it, what I'm saying is get it in your heart. Let it become a part of you. Get excited about it, okay?
And you can't do that if you don't understand it.
Yes, that's why that first one, comprehending it, is so important. So, as you begin to ask those clarifying questions, and then you walk away, what you have to begin to do is think about it and really meditate on it. Really pray and ask God, God, help me to understand this the way that my pastors have downloaded it, the way that our staff have downloaded it. I really want to understand this. And if you trust the leadership in the church that you're a part of or the organization that you're a part of, and I would hope that you would if you're there. If you're there and you're serving, you've got to at some point just trust that your leaders have heard from God, that God has downloaded that vision. He's downloaded the strategy for this organization. And you just have to trust the leadership. And so honoring comes into play big time. And for us, one of our values is that we are a family of unconditional love and honor. And that comes with the staff and the leadership all the way down through our volunteers to our church family.
If you're not in sync and in synergy with the vision where you're at, either you're going to have a really hard time or others are going to have a hard time with you. And it's important that there be honor wherever you're serving. And we say it this way, bloom where you're planted. If you know God has you somewhere and you're serving, be faithful, be loyal, show honor, follow the vision to a T, understand it, embrace it. That's what we're talking about right now. Get it down in your heart so you can carry it, so that you can act like an owner in everything that you do. So the third thing we want to share with you today is speak the language. So when it comes to speaking the language, what we're talking about is understanding the terms and the phrases, the verbiage that is used. And in fact, you just talked about using the phrase, my pleasure, as a response when someone thanks you at the Jesus Chicken place, Chick-fil-A.
Chick-fil-A.
All right, so that's a great example. And think of it this way. Somebody, Truett Cathy, I think was the name of the founder, came up with this. And you put yourself in the place of the person who gets this download, and you own the company, and you have this vision that every employee is going to carry this vision. They're going to say this response in this way, every time a customer thanks them. Yeah. Well, for you as the owner or as the lead pastor or whatever, man, it's exciting and it's highly important. But how many times have you tried to pass something along, maybe even to your kids, that was really important to you, and you're thinking, okay, they're gonna run with this,
right,
because to me this is really important, and then it just fizzles and fades.
Well, and it's really important that if you are trying to get someone to speak the language, then you've got to be consistent with the language you're using as leaders. Most everybody understands that in some form or another in a church there is discipleship, some type of smaller groups or classes where you are teaching the Word of God to a smaller group of people, or where you can discuss it, right? Mm-hmm. Different churches take on different forms. We did not want to call them classes. Nothing wrong with it, but again, we're talking about our strategy here. So instead, from day one, we called them life groups. And let me explain to you why. And that was so important. It wasn't enough to just tell our staff and our volunteers coming on, and even those leading, don't call it classes, call it a life group. We had to drill down so hard and for so long. Mm-hmm. Why? And here's why. Not everyone likes going to school. So we did not want to call it any type of class, not Sunday school class, not, midweek class or discipleship class. We wanted that verbiage out of here. So we wanted people to realize that we need to do life together. Right? Iron sharpens iron.
Everybody wants that.
So we decided to call them life groups, and we needed all of the leadership, everybody, to get that into their hearts. And so, believe it or not, this is what we would do. It was hard because...
This is funny.
It was so difficult in the beginning.
It was hard.
That one day we decided, within our staff...
People kept saying class.
It was a running joke within our group of staff.
We would say, class.
Okay, if you say class, every time you say it, you have to put $10 into the offering. Okay? You have to give $10. It's like we find people. Of course, again, this was our staff. It wasn't the members of the church.
And key leaders.
It was key leaders. But it became this running joke. And I guarantee you, it worked.
It worked.
Oh my goodness. To this day, years later.
That's how we built our first building.
Everybody knows, you do not say class, right? Our leaders get it, because it really is important that we're all saying the same thing as we bleed
across the board.
The vision, so that even down to the members in the seats get it in their heart. And when the community says, what is going on at that church? What is going on at Mountain Movers? They speak to our community with the same verbiage, which is beautiful. But I'll just say again, it takes a lot of intentionality to bleed vision.
A lot of thought, a lot of strategy, a lot of consistency.
Yes.
A lot of answering questions.
But it is so, so worth it. So I just want to encourage you, whatever part of the organization you are, if you're the pastor, man, get the vision, make it clear so the people can run with it, like Habakkuk says, write it down, make it clear. But at the same time, wherever you are in the organization, make sure that you are able to comprehend the vision, that you're embracing it yourself and showing that honor, and that you can speak the language. We hope today you have enjoyed this podcast and this teaching. I really hope that you'll share it with others so that we can help grow the kingdom of God, especially in rural America. We'll catch you next time.